Victor Kingston had everything a man could dream of: an empire built from years of ruthless business decisions, a luxurious mansion in Beverly Hills, and a wife who, to the outside world, seemed to be the epitome of grace and devotion. His life was a picture of success, the kind people envied from afar, but behind the expensive suits and the million-dollar smile was a man who had grown accustomed to control. His wife, Emily, had once adored him, believed in him, stood by him through his rise to wealth, but over the years she had started to see the cracks in the foundation of their marriage. The money, the influence, the lavish lifestyle, it all came at a cost, and more often than not, it was Emily who paid the price. Their 7-year-old son, Noah, was the only ray of innocence in their increasingly strained relationship. He was a bright boy, full of life, but lately he had begun to sense that something wasn't quite right in their home. Emily had become quieter, her smiles forced. He noticed how she flinched when Victor raised his voice, how she always seemed to be walking on eggshells around him. Noah was too young to understand the complexities of adult relationships, but he wasn't blind to the tension that had settled in their household like a permanent guest. On the surface, Victor was a loving husband and father. He took Emily to the most expensive restaurants in Los Angeles, bought her designer dresses, and spoiled Noah with the latest gadgets and toys. But Emily knew that none of it mattered. What good were luxury vacations in Miami Beach when she felt like a prisoner in her own home? What value did diamonds hold when she had lost her voice in the relationship? Victor's love had turned into something possessive, something suffocating, and she no longer recognized the man she had married. The shift had started years ago, gradually, like a slow-moving storm. At first, it was just small things. His impatience when she disagreed with him, his condescending tone when she expressed an opinion he didn't like. Then came the controlling behavior, the dismissiveness, the way he would belittle her in subtle ways. But lately Victor had grown more irritable, his temper unpredictable. It scared her. She wasn't afraid of what he might do in public. Victor was too careful about his image for that, but behind closed doors he wasn't the same charming businessman the world saw. Emily had tried to convince herself that it was just stress, that the pressures of running a multi-million-dollar company were making him short-tempered. But deep down she knew better. Love wasn't supposed to feel like this. One evening, after putting Noah to bed, she sat alone on the balcony of their Beverly Hills estate, staring at the skyline. The city lights twinkled like tiny stars, a stark contrast to the darkness she felt inside. She had spent years ignoring the warnings in her heart, but lately, it had become impossible to silence them. She was pregnant again, a fact she had only recently discovered. She hadn't told Victor yet, and the thought of it filled her with both joy and dread. How would he react? Would this child bring them closer together, or would it push them further apart? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Victor was home late as usual. The scent of expensive cologne filled the air as he walked into the living room, his presence commanding. She could tell by the way he loosened his tie and poured himself a drink that he had a long day. "Did Noah sleep?" he asked, not looking at her. "Yes," Emily replied softly. Victor nodded, sipping his whiskey. There was a time when he would come home and wrap his arms around her, ask about her day, make her feel like she mattered. But now there was only distance between them. She hesitated for a moment before finally gathering the courage to speak. "Victor, we need to talk." He raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. "About what?" Emily took a deep breath, her fingers gripping the fabric of her dress. "About us. About how things have changed. I'm pregnant." For a moment Victor said nothing. His expression was unreadable as he set his glass down on the marble countertop. Then, to her surprise, he let out a short laugh, though there was no warmth in it. "Pregnant," he repeated. "And you think this is the right time to bring this up? When I'm dealing with 100 things at work?" Emily's heart sank. "Victor, this isn't just about work. It's about our family. About the way you've been treating me." His eyes darkened and he took a step closer. "Treating you? I've given you everything, Emily. A life most women could only dream of. And this is how you repay me? By complaining?" She swallowed the lump in her throat. "I'm not complaining. I just want..." "What?" "More attention. More reassurance," he snapped. "Do you have any idea what I go through every day? The pressure I'm under? And now you're adding to it with your nonsense." Emily felt the sting of tears in her eyes but refused to let them fall. She had hoped for a different reaction, but deep down she had expected this. She had expected him to dismiss her feelings, to make it about himself. Victor shook his head in frustration and turned away, grabbing his phone. "I don't have time for this," he muttered. Emily watched as he disappeared into his study, slamming the door behind him. She exhaled shakily, pressing a hand to her stomach. She wasn't just thinking about herself anymore. She had to think about her children, about Noah, about the life growing inside her. Something had to change. She couldn't live like this anymore. What she didn't know was that the real breaking point was coming sooner than she imagined. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. The tension in the Kingston household had become unbearable. Ever since Emily told Victor about the pregnancy, things had only worsened between them. He had barely spoken to her in the past few days, and when he did, his words were sharp, laced with irritation. Emily had tried to convince herself that maybe he just needed time, that the stress of work was clouding his judgment. But deep down, she knew this was who he had become, a man who no longer saw her as a partner but as an inconvenience. She moved through the grand halls of their Beverly Hills mansion like a ghost, unseen and unheard, her presence acknowledged only when necessary. Even Noah, with his innocent eyes, had started noticing the coldness in his parents' relationship. One afternoon, while Emily was sitting on the patio watching Noah play in their backyard, he suddenly stopped and looked at her with an expression far too mature for a 7-year-old. "Mom, why are you always sad?" he asked. Emily's heart clenched at his words. She forced a smile, tucking a stray lock of hair behind his ear. "I'm not sad, sweetheart," she lied. But Noah wasn't convinced. "Dad doesn't talk to you like he used to," he said quietly. "And he's always angry." His voice was filled with a kind of worry that no child should have to carry. Emily didn't know how to explain to him that sometimes love changes, that people change, and that no amount of money in the world could fix what was broken between his parents. Instead, she just pulled him into a hug, silently promising herself that she would protect him from the storm that was brewing. That evening, Victor came home earlier than usual. Emily was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard the sound of the front door slamming. Her body tensed instinctively. She turned to see Victor walking in, his jaw clenched, his phone in his hand. "Do you have any idea how much trouble you've caused me?" he spat, his voice low but filled with restrained anger. Emily frowned in confusion. "What are you talking about?" Victor let out a bitter laugh, throwing his phone onto the counter. "The board members heard about our argument the other night. Apparently, someone at the gala overheard us and started spreading rumors that I'm unstable and domestically abusive. Do you have any idea what this could do to my reputation?" His words stung, not because they weren't true but because even now all he cared about was his image, his empire. "So that's what you're worried about? Your reputation?" she asked, shaking her head. "Not the fact that our marriage is falling apart? That our son is starting to see the cracks in his parents' relationship?" Victor scoffed, rubbing his temples. "I don't have time for this, Emily. I work day and night to provide for this family, and all I get in return is you whining about emotions." His words hit her like a slap. This wasn't the man she had fallen in love with years ago. That man had been kind, ambitious, but still loving. This man in front of her was cold, dismissive, a stranger in their own home. Before she could respond, Noah ran into the kitchen, his little feet patting against the marble floor. "Dad, can we play catch outside?" he asked excitedly, his eyes lighting up. Victor looked at his son and sighed, his irritation still evident. "Not now, Noah. I have a lot on my mind." The boy's face fell, disappointment washing over him. "You never have time anymore," he mumbled, looking down at his feet. For a brief second, guilt flickered across Victor's face, but it was gone just as quickly. He turned to Emily instead. "And you," he said, pointing at her. "Next time, think before you open your mouth in public." With that, he grabbed his phone and stormed off to his study, slamming the door behind him. Emily felt a lump rise in her throat. She turned to Noah, who was still staring at the closed door, his little hands clenched into fists. "It's okay, baby," she whispered, kneeling beside him. "Your dad just has a lot going on." But Noah didn't look convinced. "I don't like it when he talks to you like that," he admitted softly. Emily closed her eyes for a moment, trying to push back the tears that threatened to spill. "Neither do I," she whispered. The days passed in a blur, each one feeling heavier than the last. Victor continued to distance himself, throwing himself deeper into work, avoiding Emily whenever possible. The few times they did speak, their conversations were tense, forced. The only thing keeping Emily sane was Noah, her little anchor in the chaos. But even he was starting to change. He spoke less, his usual excitement dulled by the cold atmosphere of their home. It broke Emily's heart to see the impact Victor's behavior was having on him. Then came the night that changed everything. Victor had been invited to yet another high-profile business event in Los Angeles, and as always, Emily was expected to attend by his side. She didn't want to go. She hated these gatherings, hated the fake smiles, the way Victor paraded her around like a trophy wife. But she had no choice. That evening she put on an elegant navy blue gown, applied her makeup carefully, and plastered on the best smile she could manage. Noah watched her from the doorway as she got ready. "Are you happy, Mom?" he asked suddenly. Emily turned to him, startled by the question. "Why do you ask that?" she replied, adjusting her earrings. Noah hesitated before speaking. "Because when Dad isn't around, you look happier." Emily's heart ached at his words. She walked over to him, cupping his little face in her hands. "I'll always be happy as long as I have you," she whispered. But even as she said the words, she knew they weren't entirely true. Happiness shouldn't be something she had to fake. The gala was everything she expected: luxurious, crowded, filled with the city's most influential people. Victor was in his element, shaking hands, making deals, laughing at jokes that weren't funny. Emily stood by his side, playing the role of the perfect wife, but inside she felt hollow. Halfway through the night, while Victor was engaged in conversation with some investors, Emily excused herself and stepped outside for some air. As she stood on the balcony, looking out at the glittering city lights, she felt a strange sense of relief being away from him, even for a few minutes. But that relief was short-lived. When she turned to head back inside, she saw Victor standing at the entrance, his expression dark. "What the hell are you doing out here?" he demanded, his voice low but threatening. Emily's stomach twisted. "I just needed some air," she said quietly. But Victor wasn't convinced. "You're embarrassing me," he hissed, grabbing her arm roughly. Emily tried to pull away, but his grip tightened. "Victor, let go," she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. And then, in a moment that would change everything, he did something she never expected. He raised his hand and slapped her across the face. The sound echoed through the balcony, and for a second, everything went silent. Emily's vision blurred from the shock, her cheeks stinging. When she finally looked up, she saw not just Victor's furious face, but something else: dozens of stunned guests standing inside, watching in horror. And among them, standing frozen in the crowd, was Noah. His eyes were wide, his little body trembling. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily's cheek burned with pain, but nothing hurt more than the look on Noah's face. He stood motionless in the crowd, his small hands clenched into fists, his lips slightly parted as if he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. The entire ballroom had fallen into a stunned silence. The music had stopped, the chatter had ceased, and all eyes were on them. For the first time in Victor's life, he had lost control of the narrative. The powerful, composed businessman was now exposed for what he truly was: an abuser. A few gasps echoed through the room, and then murmurs started to rise. People exchanged shocked glances, some whispering behind their hands, others shaking their heads in disgust. A few women looked horrified, clutching their pearls as if they had just witnessed something from a tragic movie. But for Emily, this was no movie. This was her life. Her eyes darted toward Noah again. He hadn't moved. He was still staring, still frozen, still processing what he had just witnessed. Emily's heart pounded as she realized something had changed in him. The innocence, the trust, the belief that his father was a hero, it had all shattered in an instant. A sharp pang of guilt hit her. She had stayed in this toxic marriage for Noah, believing that a child needed both parents. But now, she wondered if she had only damaged him more by allowing him to see this side of his father. Victor's face was still filled with rage, but now there was something else. Panic. He had just humiliated himself in front of some of the most powerful people in Los Angeles. He turned toward the crowd, his mouth opening and closing as if he wanted to explain himself. But there was no justification for what he had done. His reputation had just taken a hit that no amount of money could fix. One of the guests, an older man in a tailored navy suit, stepped forward. He was James Holloway, a well-known real estate mogul and one of Victor's biggest investors. His voice was cold, sharp. "I think you should leave, Victor." Victor's jaw tightened, his breathing heavy. "James, this is a private matter." James cut him off. "Not anymore. You made it public the moment you put your hands on your wife in front of all of us." He turned to Emily, his expression softer now. "Do you need help?" Emily had spent years learning how to mask her pain, how to pretend everything was fine even when it wasn't. But tonight she couldn't hide it. Tears welled in her eyes as she slowly nodded. And then, something even more unexpected happened. Several women stepped forward, offering quiet words of comfort. Some guests pulled their phones out, capturing the moment, ensuring that Victor would never be able to bury this incident under his wealth and influence. Victor's face turned pale as he realized just how much damage had been done. He had always been able to control the narrative, pay off the right people, and keep his sins hidden behind the golden doors of their Beverly Hills mansion. But tonight there was no escaping. With one last furious glance at Emily, he turned on his heel and stormed out, shoving past the guests as he made his way toward the exit. As soon as he was gone, Emily felt her knees go weak. Before she could collapse, James Holloway gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to go back to him," he said quietly. "There are people who can help you." Emily swallowed hard, her mind racing. Where would she go? She had been so consumed by surviving each day that she had never allowed herself to imagine an escape. Then she felt a small hand slip into hers. She looked down to see Noah, his face pale, his eyes filled with something she hadn't seen in them before, anger. "We don't need him, Mom," he said in a firm voice that didn't sound like a 7-year-old's. Emily's heart ached as she knelt beside him, brushing his hair back. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" she asked softly. Noah hesitated, then nodded. But then his voice wavered. "Are you?" Emily had spent years pretending she was fine. But tonight, for the first time, she allowed herself to be honest. "No," she whispered. "But I will be." James handed her a business card. "There's a hotel nearby. I'll make sure you have a room for as long as you need. And if you ever want to talk to a lawyer, I know a few who specialize in cases like this." Emily took the card, gripping it tightly. For years, she had convinced herself that leaving Victor wasn't an option. But tonight, standing in this ballroom, surrounded by strangers who had shown her more kindness than her husband ever had, she realized something. She wasn't alone. She took a deep breath and turned to Noah. "Let's go, baby." Hand in hand, they walked out of the gala, stepping into the crisp night air of Los Angeles. Emily didn't know what the future held. She didn't know where they would go, how she would rebuild her life, or how to heal from the years of pain. But as she looked at Noah, who squeezed her hand a little tighter, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't looking back. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily sat in the back seat of the taxi, staring out at the glowing city lights of Los Angeles. The towering skyline, the bustling streets, the endless movement of people. It all felt surreal, as if she were watching a movie rather than living in this moment. Noah was beside her, his small fingers still wrapped around hers, as if afraid she might disappear if he let go. The driver glanced at them in the rearview mirror but said nothing. Maybe he had seen too many stories like this to be surprised. Her mind was racing, replaying the events of the night over and over. The sting of Victor's slap had faded, but the humiliation, the fear, and the weight of years of emotional torment still clung to her like a second skin. She had spent a decade building a life with a man who had stripped her of her confidence, isolated her from friends, and made her believe that she was nothing without him. But tonight, she had taken the first step toward breaking free. James Holloway had arranged for her to stay at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, a place she had only ever seen in movies. As the taxi pulled up to the grand entrance, Emily hesitated. The marble pillars, the lavish decor, it all felt so different from the cold, sterile mansion she had lived in with Victor. A bellboy opened the door for her and she stepped out cautiously, still gripping Noah's hand. The concierge was expecting her. "Mrs. Langford?" he asked, his voice polite but professional. Emily nodded. "Yes." The man handed her a key card. "Your suite is ready. Mr. Holloway has taken care of everything. If you need anything at all, please don't hesitate to call the front desk." Emily swallowed hard. "Thank you." As she walked toward the elevator, Noah looked up at her. "Are we staying here forever?" he asked. She forced a small smile. "No, sweetheart. Just for a little while." Their suite was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, plush furniture, and a massive bed that looked softer than anything Emily had slept on in years. But despite the luxury, she felt a deep sense of unease. She sat on the edge of the bed, her hands trembling. "What now?" Noah climbed onto the bed beside her, his little face serious. "Mom, what's gonna happen to us?" Emily sighed, pulling him into her arms. "I don't know, baby. But we're going to figure it out. Together." She ran her fingers through his hair, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. She had spent years convincing herself that staying with Victor was the best thing for Noah, that growing up in wealth and privilege was worth the pain. But now, sitting in this hotel room with nothing but the clothes on their backs, she realized how wrong she had been. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, breaking the silence. She flinched before reaching for it. The moment she saw Victor's name, her stomach twisted. She hesitated for a long moment before finally answering. His voice was low, furious. Where the hell are you? Emily took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. I'm safe, Victor. That's all you need to know. He scoffed. Safe? Do you have any idea what you've done? Do you know how many people saw that? My reputation is in ruins because of you. Emily closed her eyes, exhaustion washing over her. Your reputation? That's what you're worried about? Not the fact that you hit me in front of our son? Victor was silent for a moment. Then his voice hardened. You need to come home. Now. Emily clenched her jaw. No. I'm done, Victor. His voice dropped to a menacing whisper. You think you can just leave? You think I'll let you walk away? You have no money, no job, no way to survive without me. You'll come crawling back. Emily's grip on the phone tightened. The old Emily, the one who had spent years believing Victor's threats, might have crumbled. But tonight, something inside her had shifted. We'll see about that, she said quietly before hanging up. Her hands were shaking, but she refused to let fear control her. She turned to Noah, who had been watching her intently. Are you okay? She asked softly. He nodded. But then after a moment he said, I don't want to go back, Mom. Tears burned her eyes as she pulled him into a hug. We won't. That night, Emily barely slept. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about what came next. She had no job, no bank account of her own. Victor had controlled every aspect of their finances. But she wasn't completely helpless. She had a degree in interior design, though she hadn't worked in years. Maybe she could find something. Maybe she could start over. In the morning she called James Holloway. He answered on the second ring. Emily, he said. I was hoping you'd call. She hesitated. I don't know what to do. His voice was calm, reassuring. You don't have to figure it all out today. But if you want, I can put you in touch with a lawyer. Someone who specializes in cases like yours. Emily's heart pounded. I can't afford a lawyer. I'll cover it, James said without hesitation. Don't worry about that. Emily swallowed the lump in her throat. Why are you helping me? There was a pause. Then James said, because I've seen too many women go through this alone. And because no one deserves to live in fear. Tears welled in her eyes. For so long she had felt trapped, powerless. But now, for the first time, she felt a glimmer of hope. Okay, she whispered. I'll meet with the lawyer. As she hung up, she looked at Noah, who was watching cartoons on the couch. He was just a child, but he had already seen too much. She walked over, pulling him into a hug. We're going to be okay, she said, more to convince herself than him. And for the first time in years, she almost believed it. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily woke up to the soft glow of sunlight filtering through the sheer curtains of her hotel suite. For a moment, there was peace, a rare, fleeting sense of calm that she hadn't felt in years. But as reality settled back in, so did the weight of everything she was facing. She turned her head to see Noah curled up beside her, his small hands clutching the pillow, his breathing steady. He had always been a light sleeper, but last night, after everything, he had drifted off faster than usual, exhaustion overtaking his little body. Emily gently brushed his hair from his forehead, her heart aching for him. He was too young to be caught in this storm. Too innocent to understand the battle that was about to unfold. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand, making her stomach twist with anxiety. Was it Victor again? She reached for it cautiously and exhaled when she saw the name, James Holloway. She sat up, careful not to wake Noah, and answered. Hello. James' voice was steady but serious. Emily, I spoke to the lawyer. Her name is Linda Grayson. She's one of the best in Los Angeles when it comes to cases like yours. She's expecting you at her office today. Emily ran a hand through her hair, trying to shake off the lingering fatigue. Thank you, James. I don't know what I'd do without your help. You don't have to do this alone, he said. Linda will walk you through everything. But Emily, Victor is already making moves. He's trying to spin the narrative in the media. A few outlets are picking up the story, but his PR team is working hard to make it seem like a misunderstanding. You need to act fast. Her chest tightened. Of course Victor would do this. He wasn't just a man, he was an empire, and he would do everything in his power to protect his image. She had seen him destroy business rivals, silence scandals, and manipulate the media with a single phone call. And now she was his next target. After ending the call, she got up, washed her face, and forced herself to focus. She had no time for fear. She had to fight back not just for herself but for Noah. She ordered a quick breakfast for him, packed the few belongings they had, and took a taxi to Linda Grayson's office in downtown Los Angeles. The law firm was in a sleek high-rise, the kind that screamed power and influence. As she stepped into the lobby, her nerves nearly got the best of her. What if Victor had already gotten to Linda? What if this was a setup? But she pushed the doubts aside. She had to trust someone. Linda Grayson was a woman in her early 50s, with sharp eyes and a commanding presence. She motioned for Emily to sit across from her desk and immediately got to business. "James told me everything," Linda said. "But I need to hear it from you. No filters. No sugarcoating. Tell me exactly what happened." Emily hesitated, then took a deep breath and laid it all out. The years of control, the emotional manipulation, the isolation, and then finally, the slap in front of Noah. Linda listened without interrupting, only nodding occasionally, her expression unreadable. When Emily finished, Linda leaned back in her chair. "You have a strong case," she said. "Victor may be powerful, but he's made a mistake. Public incidents like this don't just go away. However, we need to be strategic. Are you prepared for what comes next?" Emily swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" Linda folded her hands on the desk. "Victor is going to play dirty. He's going to accuse you of being unstable and unfit mother. He'll claim you're trying to take his son away out of revenge. He may even try to use your financial situation against you. Do you have any bank accounts in your name?" Emily shook her head. "Victor controlled everything." Linda's lips pressed into a thin line. "That's what I thought. You need financial independence and you need it now. Do you have any work experience?" "I have a degree in interior design," Emily said, "but I haven't worked in years." Linda nodded. "That's okay. We'll figure something out. But in the meantime, you need to prepare for battle. We'll file for a restraining order, but Victor will fight it. You'll need to testify in court. Are you ready for that?" Emily hesitated. The idea of standing in a courtroom, facing Victor, having every part of her life dissected and scrutinized, terrified her. But then she thought of Noah. Of the way he had clung to her, the fear in his eyes. And she knew there was no other choice. "Yes," she said firmly. "I'm ready." Linda gave a small approving nod. "Good. Because once we start this, there's no turning back." As Emily left the office, her mind was spinning. She had just stepped into a war and she was up against a man who had never lost a battle in his life. She checked her phone and saw a missed call from an unknown number. Her stomach dropped. Was it Victor? The media? A reporter sniffing out a scandal? She ignored it and kept walking, clutching Noah's hand tightly. When they got back to the hotel, she noticed two men in suits lingering near the entrance. Her heart pounded. Were they Victor's people? Had he found her already? She quickly ushered Noah inside, keeping her head down, and hurried to the elevator. As soon as they got to the room, she locked the door and leaned against it, breathing heavily. This was only the beginning, and she knew things would get worse before they got better. But for the first time in years she had hope. Hope that she could break free. Hope that she could build a new life for herself and Noah. That night, she stayed up researching jobs, apartments, anything that could help her become independent. She reached out to an old friend from college, someone Victor had forced her to cut ties with. To her surprise, the friend responded immediately, offering her support. And just as she was about to go to bed, her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text. "You think you can run? You think you can take my son away from me? You have no idea who you're dealing with. This isn't over, Emily. Not even close." Her blood ran cold. She knew Victor was dangerous, but seeing the threat in writing made it feel more real. She clutched her phone, her mind racing. She had come too far to back down now. No matter what Victor did, no matter how hard he tried to crush her, she would not go back. She deleted the message, took a deep breath, and pulled Noah closer in bed. She didn't know what the next day would bring, but one thing was certain. She was ready to fight. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily barely slept that night. Every time she closed her eyes, Victor's text flashed in her mind. She had known he wouldn't let her go easily, but seeing his threat in writing made it all the more terrifying. She kept the phone close, checking it every few minutes, expecting another message or a call, but nothing came. Just silence. The kind of silence that felt like the calm before a storm. She lay in bed, listening to the steady breathing of Noah beside her, trying to convince herself that she was safe, that Victor couldn't touch them here. But deep down she knew better. The next morning she forced herself to push aside the fear. She had things to do. She had to meet Linda again to start the legal process, and she needed to find a way to support herself. Money was going to be a problem. Victor had ensured she had nothing of her own. She had a credit card he had given her, but she knew better than to use it. He would be tracking every move she made. She needed cash. Real independence. She sat at the small hotel desk, opening her laptop, searching for job listings in Los Angeles. Her heart sank as she scrolled through them. Most required years of experience or connections, neither of which she had. She had studied interior design, but it had been years since she worked. Who would hire someone with a long gap in their resume? A knock at the door made her jump. Her first instinct was panic. Had Victor found them already? She hurried to the peephole, heart pounding, and let out a breath when she saw James. She unlocked the door and let him in. "You look like you haven't slept," he said, concern in his voice. "I haven't," she admitted, closing the door behind him. "He texted me last night." James' face darkened. "What did he say?" She handed him the phone and he read the message, his jaw tightening. "Emily, you need to take this seriously. Victor isn't just threatening you, he's warning you. He's going to fight dirty." "I know," she said quietly. "But I don't have a choice." James nodded, then handed her an envelope. "I withdrew some cash for you. It's not much, but it'll help you get by until we figure something out." Tears welled in her eyes. "James, I can't take this." "Yes, you can," he interrupted. "And you will. You need a new phone too. One Victor can't track. We'll get you a prepaid one today." She took the envelope, swallowing the lump in her throat. "Thank you," she whispered. James sat down, rubbing his hands together. "Listen, I've been thinking. You need a job and you need it fast. I have a friend who owns a small design studio in Beverly Hills. It's not a big firm, but he might be willing to take you on even part-time." Emily's eyes widened. "Really?" "It's not guaranteed," James cautioned, "but I can set up a meeting." Hope flickered in her chest. It wasn't much, but it was something. "I'll take anything," she said. James nodded. "Good. We'll also set up a bank account in your name. One Victor can't touch." The weight on her chest lifted, if only slightly. For the first time in years she was taking steps toward freedom. Later that day she met with Linda again. The lawyer wasted no time filing for a restraining order against Victor. "He'll fight it," Linda warned. "But given the public incident, we have a strong case. We also need to talk about custody." Emily tensed. "Do you think he'll try to take Noah?" Linda didn't sugarcoat it. "Absolutely. He's not going to let you leave quietly, and he'll use whatever he can against you. We need to prepare for that." Emily clenched her fists. "Noah stays with me." Linda nodded. "Then we fight." As they left the office, Emily's nerves were raw. Every step forward felt like an invitation for Victor to strike back. She walked down the bustling streets of downtown Los Angeles, clutching Noah's hand, feeling the weight of invisible eyes watching her. Was she being paranoid? Or was Victor already pulling strings behind the scenes? She met James later that evening, and he handed her a new phone. "No calls on your old one. If Victor tries to contact you, let me or Linda handle it." Emily nodded, gripping the device like it was a lifeline. The next day she met James' friend, Daniel Carter, the owner of a small but elegant interior design studio in Beverly Hills. The office was sleek and modern, the kind of place she had once dreamed of working in. Daniel, a man in his 40s with a kind but businesslike demeanor, studied her resume carefully. "You have a degree but no recent experience," he noted. "I took time off to raise my son," Emily admitted. "But I'm ready to get back to work. I just need a chance." Daniel leaned back in his chair, considering her. "James speaks highly of you. I can offer a part-time position. It won't be much at first, but if you prove yourself, we'll see." Tears of relief pricked her eyes. "Thank you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Can you start tomorrow?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. As she left the studio, she felt a strange mix of excitement and fear. This was a step forward, but it also meant putting herself out there, making herself more visible. Would Victor find out? Would he try to ruin this too? That night, back at the hotel, she felt a flicker of peace for the first time. She had a job, a lawyer, and a plan. She was fighting back. She watched Noah sleep, brushing a gentle hand over his hair. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. But just as she was about to turn off the bedside lamp, her new phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Nice try, Emily. You really think a restraining order can stop me? This is far from over." Her blood ran cold. Victor knew. He was watching. And he wasn't going to let her go without a fight. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily's hands trembled as she gripped her phone, staring at the message. Victor knew. He was watching. Her heart pounded, her mind racing through the possibilities. How did he find out? Was he following her? Had he put someone on her trail? She forced herself to take deep breaths, but the fear was suffocating. She couldn't afford to panic, not now. She needed to think clearly to act smart. She immediately dialed James. It was late, but he answered on the second ring. "Emily?" His voice was alert, as if he had been expecting this. "He knows," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "He just sent me a message." "Read it to me," James said, his tone turning sharp. She did, and the silence on the other end was chilling. "Emily, this means he has someone watching you. He might have even bribed someone at the hotel." The thought made her stomach churn. "What do I do?" "First, don't respond. Second, we're moving you and Noah to another location, tonight," James said firmly. "Pack what you need. I'll be there in 20 minutes. She nodded, even though he couldn't see her, and quickly grabbed a bag. She packed only the essentials: clothes, important documents, Noah's favorite stuffed toy. She didn't want to wake him, but there was no choice. Gently, she shook his shoulder. "Noah, sweetheart, we have to go." He stirred, rubbing his sleepy eyes. "Mommy? Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe," she whispered, kissing his forehead. "It's okay, I promise." By the time James arrived, Emily was ready. He wasted no time, ushering them to his car. "We're going to an Airbnb in Pasadena," he said as he pulled out of the parking lot. "It's under my name and I paid in cash. Victor won't be able to trace it." Emily exhaled in relief. "Thank you, James. I don't know what I'd do without you." "You're not alone in this," he assured her. The drive was quiet, except for Noah's soft breathing as he dozed off again. Emily stared out the window, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. How much longer would she have to run? Would Victor ever stop? When they reached the Airbnb, James did a quick sweep of the place before letting them in. "You should be safe here for now," he said, locking the door behind them. "I'll be back in the morning with Linda. We need to take legal action, real action." Emily nodded, exhaustion creeping into her bones. "Okay." After James left, she tucked Noah into bed and sat by the window, staring at the empty street. Her new job started tomorrow, but how was she supposed to focus when she was constantly looking over her shoulder? She needed to be strong, for Noah, for herself. Morning came too soon. Emily barely slept, but she forced herself up, dressed quickly, and left Noah in the care of a trusted babysitter James had arranged. When she arrived at Daniel Carter's design studio, she took a deep breath, pushing aside her fears. She needed this job. It was her first step toward independence. Daniel greeted her with a nod. "Glad you made it. Let's get started." The work was challenging, but Emily felt a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. She sketched layouts, reviewed fabric samples, and assisted in client meetings. It wasn't long before Daniel noticed her skills. "You've got a good eye," he said, watching her work. "Thank you," she replied, trying to suppress the overwhelming emotions bubbling inside her. By the end of the day, she felt exhausted but accomplished. She could do this. She could rebuild her life. But as she stepped out of the office, her stomach twisted. Across the street, a black car was parked. The tinted windows made it impossible to see inside, but something about it made her uneasy. She forced herself to walk calmly to the babysitter's house, her pulse quickening with every step. When she finally reached the door and saw Noah's smiling face, she let out a shaky breath. That night she told James about the car. "Could just be paranoia," he said. "Or it could be Victor's people." "I don't want to take any chances," Emily whispered. James agreed. "We're going to speed up the legal process. Linda is filing an emergency hearing for full custody. If we can prove Victor is a threat, the court might rule in your favor." Emily swallowed hard. "And if they don't?" James didn't answer, but the look in his eyes said it all. They had to win. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily sat in the dimly lit living room of the Pasadena Airbnb, her mind racing despite the quiet of the night. The weight of everything pressed down on her. Victor's growing threats, the possibility that he had people following her, and the looming court battle that could determine her and Noah's future. She glanced at the clock. It was just past midnight, and yet sleep was impossible. Every time she closed her eyes, she imagined Victor's face twisted in rage, his voice echoing in her mind, reminding her of how easily he had destroyed her life before. She couldn't let it happen again. James had assured her that Linda was filing for an emergency hearing, but Emily knew how unpredictable the legal system could be, especially when the man you were up against was a powerful millionaire with resources she could only dream of. Victor had connections, money, and influence, three things that could tilt the court in his favor no matter how strong her case was. What if the judge didn't believe her? What if they saw her as just another bitter ex-wife trying to take a man's child away? She pulled her knees to her chest and exhaled shakily, forcing herself to focus on the one thing that mattered most, Noah. He was asleep in the next room, unaware of the storm brewing around him. He deserved better than this. He deserved safety, stability, a life free from fear. She had to fight for that no matter what it took. The next morning, Emily forced herself into routine, getting dressed, preparing breakfast, and checking her phone for any updates from James. Her heart pounded when she saw his name flash across the screen. "Good news," he said the moment she answered. "The judge granted us a hearing for next week." Relief flooded her, but it was quickly replaced by anxiety. "Next week? That's so soon." "That's exactly what we want," James assured her. "The sooner we get you in front of the judge, the better. Linda has been working all night gathering evidence. She needs you to send her everything you have, texts, emails, any proof that Victor has been threatening you." Emily nodded, already scrolling through her phone. "I have some messages. And I saved the email from his lawyer threatening to take Noah." "Good. We'll use it all. Just stay low for now, Emily. If he's watching you, we can't give him anything to use against you." She promised she would be careful, but deep down she knew Victor wouldn't just sit back and let her win. He would fight, and when he fought dirty. Later that afternoon she picked up Noah from the babysitter's house. He ran into her arms, his small hands gripping her tightly. "Mommy, Miss Clara let me draw today. Look." He proudly held up a piece of paper with crayon scribbles, a bright yellow sun, a house, and two figures holding hands. "That's me and you," he said, pointing at the drawing. Emily smiled, her heart aching. "It's beautiful, sweetheart." As they walked back to the car, she glanced around, her instincts prickling. The black car was there again. Parked down the street, engine off, tinted windows. She tried to act normal, buckling Noah into his seat and forcing a smile. But inside, panic clawed at her chest. Once she was on the road, she called James. "The car is back," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "It's been outside Clara's house every time I pick up Noah." James swore under his breath. "That's not a coincidence. You need to stay somewhere else tonight. I'll arrange something." Emily didn't argue. She drove straight back to the Airbnb, packed a small bag, and waited for James to send her a new address. When he finally did, it was for a hotel in downtown Los Angeles. That night, she locked the door behind her and checked it twice. Noah was curled up on the bed, fast asleep, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that Victor was closing in. She needed to stay one step ahead. The next morning, she met with Linda at her office. The attorney was sharp-eyed and no-nonsense, flipping through a file as Emily sat across from her. "Your case is strong," Linda said, "but Victor's lawyers will be brutal. They're going to try to paint you as unstable, manipulative, maybe even unfit." Emily swallowed hard. "How do I fight that?" "With the truth," Linda said firmly. "And with evidence. You've done a great job keeping records, but we need more. I want you to get statements from people who witnessed Victor's behavior. Friends, former employees, anyone who can back up your claims." Emily hesitated. "I don't know if anyone will be willing to go up against him." "Find someone," Linda said. "Because if we don't, Victor will walk into that courtroom looking like a perfect father, and the judge will have no reason to take Noah away from him." Emily left the office feeling the weight of it all crushing her. Who could she turn to? Most of the people in their old social circle were still under Victor's influence. But then she thought of someone, Sarah. Sarah had been one of the few people who saw through Victor's charm. She had been there the night he slapped Emily in public. If anyone could help, it was her. Emily dialed her number, fingers trembling. The phone rang, and for a moment she thought it would go to voicemail. But then Sarah picked up. "Emily?" Her voice was cautious. "I need your help," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Please." Sarah was silent for a long time. "Are you okay?" "No," Emily admitted. "And I don't think I will be unless I do something about this." Pause. Then Sarah exhaled. "Tell me what you need." Emily closed her eyes, relief washing over her. Maybe, just maybe, she had a chance. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily sat in the dimly lit corner of the downtown Los Angeles cafe, her fingers wrapped tightly around her coffee cup. Across from her, Sarah looked nervous, glancing around as if expecting Victor to burst in at any moment. It had been years since they last spoke, but now, Sarah was the only person who could help her. "I don't know, Emily," she said hesitantly. "Victor has power. If I testify against him, I'll be putting myself in danger too." Emily understood her fear. Victor wasn't just a millionaire, he was ruthless, vindictive, and willing to destroy anyone who stood in his way. "I know I'm asking a lot," Emily said, her voice barely above a whisper. But you were there that night, Sarah. You saw what he did to me. If I don't fight, he'll take Noah away from me. The weight of that reality settled between them. Sarah sighed, rubbing her temples before nodding. Okay, she said finally. I'll do it. But you need to be careful, Emily. If he finds out what we're doing. Emily knew exactly what Victor was capable of, but she couldn't afford to think about that now. She had to focus on the court hearing. Over the next few days, she worked tirelessly with Linda and James, gathering as much evidence as possible. Sarah wrote a detailed statement, recounting the night Victor slapped Emily in public, how he had humiliated her in front of their son, and how she had seen bruises on Emily's arms before. Linda was thrilled. This is exactly what we needed, she said, flipping through the documents. Sarah's testimony is strong. If she stands by it in court, we have a real shot. But Emily knew Victor wouldn't let things go that easily. That evening, as she and Noah settled into their hotel room, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. You think you can win? You have no idea what I'm capable of. Drop this now or you'll regret it. A cold shiver ran down her spine. Victor. She had expected threats, but seeing it in writing made her stomach turn. She quickly took a screenshot and sent it to Linda. He's threatening me again. Linda replied almost immediately. Save everything. Do not respond. We'll use it in court. Emily stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Victor was getting desperate, which meant he was losing control. But that also made him even more dangerous. The next morning, Emily took Noah to a nearby park to clear her mind. She watched as he ran toward the swings, laughing as he kicked his legs in the air. For a moment, everything felt normal. But then she noticed it, a man standing near the entrance, wearing dark sunglasses, his hands in his pockets. He wasn't watching the other children. He was watching her. Panic surged through her. She grabbed Noah's hand and hurried back to the car, locking the doors the moment they got inside. As she pulled out of the parking lot, she checked the rearview mirror. The man was still there watching. That night, James arranged for them to move again. This time they stayed in a different Airbnb in Santa Monica, farther from the city. Emily was exhausted from running, but she knew she couldn't stop now. The hearing was only 2 days away. Linda had prepared her for every possible attack Victor's lawyers would throw at her. They would call her unstable, say she was alienating Noah from his father, and even bring up financial concerns, arguing that Victor could provide a better life. But Emily had something stronger, the truth. The morning of the hearing arrived, and Emily dressed carefully in a navy blue dress, hoping to project confidence even though her hands were shaking. When she arrived at the courthouse, Victor was already there, standing with his expensive legal team. He looked at her and smirked as if he had already won. But Emily held her head high and walked inside. The proceedings started, and as expected, Victor's lawyers attacked her character. Miss Carter has been moving from place to place, avoiding communication with Mr. Langston, one of them argued. She has been uncooperative, making it impossible for our client to maintain a relationship with his son. Emily clenched her fists, but Linda remained calm. Miss Carter has been forced to move repeatedly due to harassment and threats from Mr. Langston, she countered. We have documented evidence of his intimidation tactics, including threatening messages. She handed over the screenshots. The judge reviewed them with a frown. Then it was Sarah's turn. She took the stand, glancing briefly at Emily before facing the courtroom. I saw what Victor did, she said firmly. He hit Emily in public. He called her horrible names. And that wasn't the first time. I saw bruises on her before, but she always made excuses. Victor's lawyer tried to discredit her, suggesting she had a personal vendetta, but Sarah didn't waver. I have no reason to lie, she said. I was his friend once too. But I can't ignore what I saw. Then it was Emily's turn. She took a deep breath and spoke directly to the judge. I'm not trying to keep Noah from his father. I'm trying to protect him. Victor is not the man he pretends to be in public. He is violent. He is controlling. And I am terrified that if he gets custody, my son will grow up thinking that's normal. When the proceedings ended, the judge didn't give an immediate ruling. They would reconvene in 2 days for the final decision. As Emily left the courthouse, Victor caught up with her, his voice low and venomous. You think this is over? He sneered. I always win, Emily. She met his gaze, refusing to back down. Not this time. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily sat in the dimly lit hotel room in Santa Monica, her hands trembling as she scrolled through the documents Linda had sent her. The weight of the upcoming court decision loomed over her like a storm cloud. Noah was asleep on the bed, his small body curled up in the safety of blankets, unaware of the battle his mother was fighting. Emily envied his innocence. She took a deep breath and reminded herself why she had come this far, why she had endured the threats, the fear, and the endless legal battles. She was doing this for her son. But as much as she tried to stay strong, Victor's shadow was everywhere. Every time she stepped outside, she felt eyes on her, and the memory of the man watching her at the park still sent chills down her spine. She knew Victor wouldn't back down easily. The next morning, Emily met with Linda and James at a small cafe near the courthouse. The city was alive with its usual hustle, but for Emily, everything felt slowed down, as if time was deliberately dragging her through this ordeal. Linda placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "We've done everything we can," she said. "The evidence is strong. Sarah's testimony was powerful. Now we just need to be ready for Victor's next move." James, ever the pragmatist, leaned forward. "He's going to pull something. He won't let you walk away without a fight. But remember, the judge is looking at facts, not Victor's bank account." Emily nodded, though she wasn't as convinced. She had seen how money twisted the truth, how influence could turn justice into a privilege reserved for the wealthy. That afternoon, Emily decided to take Noah to Venice Beach, hoping the salty air and crashing waves would give her a moment of peace. She watched as he ran toward the water, his laughter mixing with the sound of seagulls overhead. For a brief moment, she allowed herself to imagine a future where they were safe, where she didn't have to look over her shoulder. But reality snapped back when she noticed a familiar figure in the distance. It was Victor. He stood near a lifeguard station, sunglasses on, his hands in the pockets of his tailored suit. He didn't belong here, not among the tourists, the surfers, or the street performers. He was here for one reason only, to remind her that she was never out of his reach. Emily's breath hitched. She immediately grabbed Noah's hand and started walking in the opposite direction. Victor didn't follow, but she knew this was his way of sending a message. He was letting her know that no matter where she went, he would always be watching. That night, she locked every door and window in the hotel room, her mind racing with possibilities. She couldn't run forever. The court decision would come soon, and she had to be ready for whatever Victor was planning. The day of the final hearing arrived, and Emily barely slept the night before. As she walked into the courthouse, she saw Victor standing with his lawyers, his confidence unshaken. He gave her a smirk as if he already knew the outcome. But Emily had come too far to be intimidated now. She took her seat, gripping the edge of the table as the judge entered. The courtroom was silent, the air thick with tension. The judge cleared his throat and began reading through the case summary. Then he turned his gaze toward Victor. "Mr. Langston, your history of intimidation and documented aggression is deeply concerning. This court does not take allegations of abuse lightly." Victor's lawyer stood immediately. "Your Honor, my client has been a dedicated father, a successful businessman, and a respected member of this community. We believe Ms. Carter has exaggerated claims in an attempt to alienate her son from his father." The judge held up a hand. "I've reviewed all the evidence, including the threats sent to Ms. Carter and the eyewitness testimony regarding Mr. Langston's public act of violence. This is not about alienation, this is about safety." Emily's heart pounded as the judge turned to her. "Ms. Carter, while financial stability is a factor, the well-being of the child takes precedence. Given the evidence presented, I am granting you full custody of Noah. Mr. Langston will have supervised visitation rights until further evaluations can be conducted." A stunned silence filled the courtroom. Emily could barely process the words. She had won. She had actually won. Victor, however, was seething. His hands clenched into fists, his jaw tightening as his lawyer whispered furiously in his ear. But for the first time, Emily saw something new in his eyes: fear. He had lost control. As the judge finalized the ruling, Emily felt tears slip down her cheeks. Linda squeezed her hand. "It's over," she whispered. But Emily knew better. Victor wasn't the type to accept defeat gracefully. As they exited the courthouse, he caught up with her, his voice a low growl. "You think this is the end?" he hissed. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Emily met his glare with newfound strength. "I know exactly who I'm dealing with, Victor. And I'm not afraid of you anymore." She turned and walked away, holding Noah's hand tightly. As they stepped outside into the bright Los Angeles sun, Emily knew the battle wasn't completely over. But for the first time in a long time, she had won a fight that mattered. Before going to next, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends. Emily had barely stepped out of the courthouse when the weight of reality hit her. The legal battle had been won, but Victor wasn't the kind of man who accepted defeat easily. She could see it in his eyes, the quiet fury, the cold calculation. He wouldn't lash out in public, not now, but she knew this was far from over. Clutching Noah's hand, she walked briskly to the car where Linda was waiting. "We need to be careful," she whispered, glancing over her shoulder. Linda nodded, her grip on the steering wheel tightening. "He's going to try something. You should leave Los Angeles for a while." Emily exhaled, rubbing her temples. "I can't run forever." But deep down she knew Linda was right. Victor had resources, connections, and no conscience. That night, back in her hotel room, Emily packed their bags. Noah, blissfully unaware of the storm surrounding them, was busy drawing dinosaurs on the hotel notepad. She watched him, her heart aching. He deserved a childhood free of fear. With every folded shirt and zipped suitcase, she reminded herself that she wasn't just fleeing from Victor. She was choosing a future. A knock on the door made her jump. Linda's voice came from the other side. "It's me." Emily unlocked the door and Linda stepped inside, her expression tense. "James found something," she said, handing Emily her phone. It was a message thread between Victor's lawyer and a private investigator. The words made Emily's blood run cold. "Find out where she's staying. I want this over." Emily didn't hesitate. Within an hour, she and Noah were in Linda's car, driving toward San Francisco. They left everything behind, the hotel, the case files, even her phone. "You need to disappear," Linda said firmly, keeping her eyes on the road. "At least for now." Emily leaned her head against the window, watching the city lights blur past. The reality of her situation was setting in. Victor was dangerous, and she had underestimated just how far he was willing to go. But she wasn't the same terrified woman she had been months ago. She had won against him in court, and she would win again in life. By morning, they reached a quiet suburb outside of San Francisco. Linda's cousin Rachel had offered them a place to stay. The house was small but warm, surrounded by trees that gave it an air of safety. Emily let out a shaky breath as she stepped inside. For the first time in months, she felt a sliver of peace. But it was short-lived. That evening, as she sat on the porch, her phone, her new untraceable phone, buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You can run but you can't hide." Panic gripped her. She bolted inside, locking the door behind her. Linda was on the couch, flipping through the news. "What's wrong?" she asked, seeing Emily's face. Wordlessly, Emily handed her the phone. Linda read the message and let out a sharp breath. "We need to go to the police." Emily shook her head. "He has people everywhere. He'll know." Linda hesitated before nodding. "Then we fight back differently." Over the next few weeks, Emily and Linda worked on a plan. With James's help, they gathered more evidence. Bank records, offshore accounts, proof of illegal dealings. They weren't just going to protect Emily, they were going to take Victor down. It was risky, but Victor had underestimated them. And that would be his downfall. One evening, as Emily was putting Noah to bed, she heard Linda's voice from the living room. "It's done." Emily walked in, her heart pounding. Linda turned the laptop screen toward her. An email, addressed to multiple law enforcement agencies, journalists, and even the FBI. Attached were documents exposing Victor's illegal activities. "It's out of our hands now," Linda said. Emily exhaled. "What happens next?" Linda smiled. "We wait." The next morning, the news broke. Billionaire Victor Langston under federal investigation. The headlines were everywhere. Reporters camped outside his mansion. His business partners distanced themselves. And then the final blow, an arrest warrant. Emily watched it all unfold on TV, disbelief washing over her. She had spent years fearing this man, believing he was untouchable. But now he was the one losing control. Days later, Victor was arrested in New York. He had tried to flee the country but was caught at JFK Airport. Emily watched the footage of him being led away in handcuffs, his face twisted in rage. She felt nothing but relief. It was over. Really, truly over. A week later, Emily and Noah stood on the Golden Gate Bridge, the wind whipping through their hair. Noah held her hand, staring at the endless water below. "Are we safe now, Mommy?" he asked. Emily knelt beside him, brushing his curls from his face. "Yes, baby. We're safe." For the first time in a long time, she believed it. If you've liked this story, please subscribe our channel, like and share with friends.